Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Zach Kongonis. We are here to bring you the best solutions to your lifting problems. Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
As people should know from the previous episodes, if Mickey's blatant sales tactics weren't obvious enough, the Nexus Mentorship is coming up for powerlifting coaches who want to get better at powerlifting coaching. And one of our guest presenters on this time through is Annie. And Annie, these days, specializes in one thing that I feel like the whole fitness industry, but PTs coming up in the industry, I think particularly struggle with. I know I do, and that is just general content creation and marketing, I guess, in kind of a bigger, broader umbrella upon that. So getting clientele, one of the things that kind of makes people leave the industry early a lot of the times. So
those PTs that aren't relying on the gym to give them the sales at the end of the day.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a bit, about when it's the time to talk about content creation and put a lot more time into that. But that's it. Anyway, I want you to tell people though, like, who you are, because I know that before Annie, the copywriter, there was Annie, the powerlifter. Yeah. And I feel like that gives you a little bit of a better insight into our industry when it comes to copywriting, because you've been probably on the other end of that copywriting. And so you would know these audience quite well. But as a lifter, tell us about it, because you were quite good.
Oh, thank you.
To say it without saying it for you.
Yeah, so a powerlifter, but also coach. So I started coaching when I was 15. I got my PT qualifications and started coaching out of my parents' front veranda. And I just remember the fitness industry back then was kind of like, you will have clients. This is a growing industry. We were all sold that dream when we were like, that was 10, 15 years ago, sold the dream of like the fitness industry is the place to make money. You can flourish and thrive and everything. So I started doing that. I'd already been lifting weights since I was 13.
Yep.
And then I started, I finished high school. I went and studied exercise science. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it, but I just wanted to do something related to fitness and health, but in a more educational kind of like intelligent scientific way. So I did that. And then I started competing in powerlifting. I did a bunch of competitions, I think 25 or 30 competitions over a couple of years.
Yeah. Reaching some what were your best numbers in powerlifting and your best wins or your best memories from powerlifting?
Oh, my best memory of powerlifting was Pro Raw 6, first place at Pro Raw 6. That was a good competition.
Big deadlift was it deadlift for the win, or was it?
Yeah, it was deadlift for the win, but it wasn't just deadlift for the win. That was the competition where they first offered the Triple Crown. Well, I think it was the only time they offered the Triple Crown. So Triple Crown was if you won states, nationals, and Pro Raw.
Yeah, good times.
So by the time it came down to the actual competition, because the Pro Raw divisions were so broad, they had such big weight classes, there was only a couple of people in each weight class who were eligible for Triple Crown. And I was one of them. And so it came down to the final deadlift for $7,000. So that was the first big prize money that was ever offered in Australia.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, it was the biggest grind of your life.
Oh yeah. It was a 20 kilo PB to hit it.
Yeah. Not bad for a person who's already, well, that's a pretty good PB for anybody, but for somebody who's at Pro Raw pushing the top, pretty advanced as a lifter.
And I cut 10 kilos for it.
Jesus Christ.
All that was that we say not to do.
I love that. I love
that
how
was
there's
for
like
a 4-hour weigh-in as well. So I was just like, I cut the weight and then, because it was under 70 and over 70. I had no chance in the over 70s, but I also weighed 80 kilos. So I had one option, and that was to cut down to under 70 or not compete. Or compete, but not win.
Yeah. So you've been, like I said, you've been the powerlifter. Like, you've been on the platform extensively. At one stage, you've been the coach, as you said, started PTing out of your garage, did you say?
Yeah.
And then did you ever get into commercial gyms as a PT?
Yeah. So I did that with my, like just parents, friends and stuff when I was younger. I coached them out of my parents' place. Then I went and studied exercise science. I did a whole bunch of other jobs, like just serving people at the football stadiums, like waitressing. And then I worked in retail at this pot shop, and like just weird jobs that you do. And then I did at one point go to a commercial gym. So I went to a Good Life. I spent a year in a Good Life.
Okay, good. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Because like that adds another layer to the copywriting thing that I'm sure you
Yeah.
can put yourself in those shoes and go like, what would myself 5 years ago think, or what were my mistakes? What were my problems?
Yeah. And that was an interesting time as well, because I was doing strength training as a female, which it was just not done.
Still isn't. Yeah, still super hard to.
Yeah.
I mean, there's I can name some names for sure.
Yeah.
But like, it's still super hard to find like a female powerlifting strength coach that is super successful. It's a short list.
Even in the fitness industry, like just trying to convince people, like people would come to me for an 8-week challenge, having to convince them to do strength training, or having, I had people flat out refusing to listen to me. And I had people, it was a very different time. It was me pushing what I was doing onto other people. Whereas these days, the world has kind of opened up, online coaching has opened it up so that you can find the people who want to do the things that you want to do.
Absolutely.
And it's less about pushing things onto people who may or may not want it. You're not being a cheesy car salesperson. You're being a car specialist who people want this particular car and they'll travel from all over the world to come to see you. So I think that that's what these days has opened up. So I guess having been in the less fortunate position that I was back then has given me appreciation for what is possible now. Because that's then what we tried to do. So I opened up a gym in Brisbane.
Yeah, I was about to say that was the next
powerlifting specialist gym. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you learnt some marketing / content.
Yeah.
I guess branding lessons from that.
Yeah.
What were some
big lessons? So we were doing like social media plans and stuff back then. We were doing email lists.
Yeah. It's always I don't know about you, but if you take yourself back, maybe now a little bit different, but if you take yourself back to then, like even for us now, I feel like it's always a little bit trial and error. Like it's always a little bit like
big time. Yeah.
You go back to the drawing board so many times. You want to try email, and then you can try Facebook, and then you try paid ads versus organic, and then you try messaging people. I don't know. Like there's so many different roads to go down with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then even from like a messaging perspective, do you use client testimonials, or do you how do you get people to really want what you're doing?
Yeah.
Do you give them a trial of it? Like, how do you create
frame an
interest?
Offer? Yeah.
And because the first thing that you want to do when you're trying to sell to someone is you want to create some kind of interest. They want to be interested in you, but then you need to actually solve their problems and get them to build trust in you and realize that you're the person who can solve their problems. And then you can sell to them. But if you don't have those two things, how do you actually sell to someone? If they haven't built trust in you, and if they haven't even expressed enough interest in you to want to listen to what you have to say, how do you sell to them? So how can you do those two things? And this was back probably 6-7 years ago that we had the gym. So it was a slightly different time, but probably closer to what the industry is like now.
But do you think if you knew what you know now, like it's easy to say, of course, but like, are there some key things that you look like, moments or decisions that you look back on and go like, I would have made this different. Like I would have changed this branding thing. I would have messaged different. I would have targeted this sort of person. I would have spoken a different language. Like, I don't know, like I'm just throwing out copywriting shit in general, but like, are there any key things that you're like?
So there's this feeling that I distinctly remember back then. And this is again, being a young female in a commercial gym in a world when strength training wasn't as big as it is now. I remember this feeling of seeing other people who were like magnets, and people were just attracted to them, and they just grew.
It's weird. You think that just happens, eh?
Yeah.
Like when you don't know, you think it's like, oh fuck.
And I was like, how can I be that? And we sometimes had that, but some other times we didn't. And it wasn't something. It's like an inexperienced powerlifter trying to peak for a competition. You see someone peaking, and you think it's this magical thing that they do that you could never even imagine how to do. But there is actually a science and an art to it. So how can you be so just attractive and magnetic to people? I didn't realize that there was actually a science and an art to it. And knowing what I know now, I'm able to actually construct that and build that. And that's what I help coaches to build, that magnetic, like people attracted to them rather than...
Or to their brand.
Trying to push to people like, when I was at the commercial gym trying to tell a 50-year-old woman who hates herself and wants to lose weight that strength training and eating a little bit more is the answer.
Yeah.
Well,
You would have framed that a little bit different back if you knew what you knew.
Yeah. And I guess it's partly that the industry is changing and I have to do less of a job to convince people now. As a coach, you have to do less of a job to convince people that strength training is good.
Yeah.
But then it was also, these other things. And so one of the biggest ones I think is doing what people want rather than what you think they should do. So meeting a need rather than creating a need.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there has always been people who I've seen in the industry who have what they think is the answer, and they're pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And I guess from the content creation perspective, creating content for the sake of creating content rather than creating content because they've got something really important to say that actually helps people and that people want to hear about.
Yeah, I think we've all fallen in that trap of like, I've got all the answers. I'm smarter than everybody, so everybody should just come to me for coaching. Whereas like, once you understand that, like if you can put yourself in the shoes of those other people who don't know all this stuff, like everybody looks the same from a smarts perspective anyway. I feel like it's like if you know nothing, like everybody looks super smart. And so like trying to stand out on smarts is a pretty rough avenue to go down, I've thought. And now that I see it, whereas like you have to appeal to people in a different way, like you said.
And ask them what they want. See what people actually want and see what people are drawn to. So let's say you're creating an online course, rather than putting $100,000 into creating this huge course that you're wanting to sell for $1,000 and people will have to like it because you've put your whole life's work into it. Why not create a mini course or do a free webinar on 10 different topics and see what people like and then go with that? So a good example is this, the guy who created the book 4-Hour Work Week.
I forget his name, but I have read it. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird read, I thought, but
I haven't read it. But when he created, apparently,
it's such an odd concept to me. Like because his one before that was like 4-hour workout or something. I don't know. Like,
well, so this is what he did. Apparently, I haven't actually heard this from him, but I've been told this by someone who is knows a lot more about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But basically, what he did was he created 10 different books, but he didn't actually write the books. This was when he was doing, this was what he did as his market research for the 4-Hour Work Week. So he created 10 different book titles and he created an actual book cover for it and he sold them online. And then he created the website so it basically glitched right as people were, they put to cart and then they were about to buy it. Instead of going to your purchase has been accepted, here's your receipt, it went to 404 error. And that's what he did as his market research to see what title people would buy for the book.
Okay.
So he created 10 different book titles, 10 different book covers to see which one people actually wanted.
Yeah.
Did they want the 4-Hour Work Week, or did they want the 2-hour work day, or did they want how to work less and live more? And everyone went and actually was ready to put their money into the 4-hour work.
It's like a lot of work rather than just asking.
Yeah, but everyone knows the book name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It worked.
It's definitely like it worked, but it's like I guess he would have had to have a name before that to some degree.
Yeah.
To actually get people to click on it in the first place, like he would have had to have some trust there before.
But basically, the point is that he created this book, but then in order to actually sell it to people and to tell people, communicate with them, this is the book that you're going to be reading, he needed a title that they would really want and that they really desired and they would love. So I guess with the coaching, coming back to the coaching stuff, how to be magnetic is to actually give people the thing that they really want. So with that, that's just an example of he went to great lengths to do it, but he created this book. He knew it was stuff that they would need, but then how does he actually sell it to people? He creates the title that the most people are actually willing to pay for. And these people were actually adding to cart and buying it. So they were very invested in it. Yeah. So, yeah.
If I'm going to jump in there real quick, I think it's such an interesting parallel that you've drawn there, because I think a lot of coaches don't necessarily understand that people aren't following them to get brand new information, because very rarely people are learning brand new cutting edge information. People are there for your take on shit that they already know. And like you said there, he took the same concept. As you said, he didn't write 10 different books. It would have been the same content either way. But how he marketed it was purely based off each person's access or each person's understanding of what they wanted that book to be. So for a lot of coaches, they
and
learn
what they
something
needed
new
for themselves out of it. because
Exactly.
that person wanted a 4-hour work week. Like that's what that person really wants and desires. So yeah, exactly right, Zach. It's like, yeah, exactly what you're saying.
Because we can make one of the trends in the fitness industry that I've noticed, like what you're saying, you can write the exact same thing and put 5 different titles on it and make it sound like a different thing to different people or whatever. But one of the things I find in the fitness industry that people like to do, and I don't think it's on purpose, but I think it's just out of they feel like they need to stand out, is creating like these super catchy clickbaity titles that they feel like will get the attention, but they end up doing it in a way that makes it sound like they're like shitting on people, like making, as in like an example would be like, if you don't do this exercise, you shouldn't bother going to the gym, or if you don't eat your, get 8 hours sleep a night, then fuck, you're wasting your time, or like you shouldn't bother. Like we make it sound like a really negative, or like we're shitting on people. Whereas if we could flip that and kind of be encouraging or say it in a slightly different way, I think that it would sell a lot more, and you'd hit people at home, solve their problems a little bit better.
And that's something I actually love about the way that the industry is going now, even though that is still happening. But do you remember back when, 8 years ago when we were doing powerlifting? I remember when powerlifting first became, like, I started it as a sport, then it became a way for coaches to make money. And then when it became money, it became really cutthroat. And people hating on, oh, that's the wrong way to do this. This is the right way. Oh, that's stupid. Don't do that. That sucks.
That's what I mean. Like if you push your knees out if your knees cave in a squat, you're
wrong.
Your knees are going to explode, and you won't have any fucking knees left. Or
like hell forever if you do this.
We're just fear mongering. Like the fitness industry is noticeably bad, in my opinion, for just talking people into a negative.
Yeah, and so I like the fact that now the fitness industry is moving in a direction where, because of the way that the internet's working and because we now have access to so many different people, if you can find your niche, your people who you want to speak to, you can just talk to them and ignore the noise. It's the best way of cutting above all of the noise. So don't worry about what other coaches are doing. Don't worry about being cutthroat or being whatever. Focus on your niche and do that. So I've got this autoimmune condition, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it's a weird one, and it's technically classed as rare, but it's not actually as rare as people think it is.
Yeah.
And it causes all of these things, and strength training is one of the best things that you can do to treat it. So I've known about this for a while now, and I've been posting about it online for ages. And even though the fitness industry now is really going to niches, you guys do powerlifting, and someone else might do pregnant women, and someone else might do mums postpartum, and someone else might do, I don't know, young uni students. Like there's niches for everyone. But that's a newish thing. Back in the day when it was less nichey, I was still posting about my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Yeah,
and
I
I had clients from all over the world coming to me.
Yeah.
I had this Russian guy who I did a Zoom with. He was a Buddhist monk in Russia. I don't know how that happened.
Fuck yeah.
But he has Ehlers-Danlos. And this was like 8 years ago. And he and I were doing this Zoom call. And I had another client in America. And I had clients in other parts of Australia. And this is now where the industry is moving, to find your niche. But this is something that I guess I very accidentally discovered many years ago. And I'm like, this is actually really cool, because when I'm posting about Ehlers-Danlos stuff and the way it's helped me, I don't have to hate on this person.
Yeah.
And I don't have to talk down about this other person.
Just posting about your experience, your feelings.
I don't have to sound smart either.
Yeah.
I can just say this thing sucks and I hate doing it. And then all of my audience who have it feel me talking to their pain and feel me empathizing with them. And that to them is more important than anything else.
Definitely. I always say, I tell people that all the time when they're writing content, not that I'm the best at it, but from a different angle. And that is, for me, like I have struggled a lot in the past with worrying about putting up a post that I think's smart. And then for some reason, like this voice in the back of my head will just be like, as soon as you post that, like 10 people that are smarter than you are just going to fucking rip you apart and tell you that you're wrong. And then everybody on the internet's going to laugh at you. And obviously, like, that's never going to happen. But it's still a thing in the back of your head.
People are never going to pay you money. So
yeah,
if you're doing this from a business perspective, that's not who you should be posting.
I know it's definitely a wrong way.
It's still the wrong way, but
it's still there.
Yeah.
And so, like, one of the ways that I've gotten better at dealing with that is to write it exactly how you just said, like from a personal perspective, and just go like, my experience with training volume is that if you do X, Y, Z, you get good results. And that's my experience. And then in the back of my head, like that voice is calmed because it's like, it's your experience. Like fucking Bob can't come along and tear you down now because it's your experience. You can't be wrong. And I don't know why, but that just helps me.
Yeah. And I mean, that whole thing is just frustrating as well, because from a scientific perspective, I mean, a lot of these people who are talking about science have never actually studied science.
Nah.
And they've never actually understood the scientific method, because what they don't realize is actually traditionally a lot of scientists have written opinion pieces.
Nah.
And
their science is fucking Joe Rogan's podcast.
Through actual scientific articles, some of them on PubMed and stuff are personal experiences of case studies. Yeah. Case studies can be, it's not the same as doing a fully double-blind peer-reviewed study, but it's still, there are multiple facets of the scientific method. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent, but
no, it's all about what we're talking about, content creation.
But I think coming back to this point that you've said here, I think is really important as well. And as a coach creating content, and especially for new coaches, like two really important tips I think are that thing that I said before of find your niche and talk to them and get to know them better than anyone else in the world, and live, eat and breathe their pain, understand it, sit with their pain, know what they are experiencing and speak to that and solve their problems really well. The second thing is understand that as a coach, you're using social media to grow your business and not to be a fitness influencer, because there's a huge difference. As a fitness influencer, you need to please the masses, because fitness influencers benefit from having a huge following
that's
of people who are kind of interested
in it. It's a numbers game.
Yeah. As a strength coach, your goal is to use social media to grow your business, to help people and to grow your business. So don't get too caught up in thinking about what do the people who don't like me, what are they going to say about this? Because really you're posting to grow your business. And that's what you want to get out of it, is you're actually posting for the people who would potentially pay you money or refer you to their friends and say, hey, actually, look at this guy. He's really great at powerlifting and I think he could help you. And you're also posting so that people, if the conversation comes up in a room of your niche and someone says, oh man, I'm really looking for a powerlifting coach on the Gold Coast, someone can come along and say, actually, I saw this guy as Will's posts. He's great. So you're coming up, that's what you're using social media for, is to speak to your niche and to become an authority in your niche and to talk to the people who might actually want to pay you money. And I think that's a great way to get out of this awful headspace of competing with other people and putting things down and just this yucky stuff.
As much as I know this stuff, it just plagues me sometimes. Like I'll go through ups and downs. Like some days I'm like, you know what, fuck him, and I'll just write a heap of posts. And then through other days where I just feel like stuck in that rut where
it's
I'm just
awful. It can be really paralyzing.
Yeah, for sure.
That feeling.
Let's go back to the first one you said, because I feel like it's like I could Google copywriting, like what's a good copywriting, and that first thing you, in some shape or form would come up, as in like speak to your target market or understand your audience, blah, 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 blah. That's the most common tip that's there. Can you give us a little bit of maybe actionable, like practical advice or mistakes? Because I'm sure like every PT that's done a little bit of research on this has gone down that path and tried to define it, but I also often find they're a little bit maybe too broad, or there's a few common mistakes. Like when somebody's trying to find their target audience or really like understand that person, it's a couple of like, how would you talk them through it?
Yeah. So target audience is kind of made up of a few things, I think. So one of them is the people who are naturally attracted to you. So this is kind of coming back to the thing I was talking about earlier of don't try and force something that's not happening. If people are already attracted to you magnetically, go with them. So that's one part of it. Who is attracted to you naturally? The next thing is, who do you enjoy working with? So, we've all had those clients that we just frustrating versus the ones who we really, really like. And to be honest, often that comes down to whether your values align. Like if you really think about it, any clients that you've found, this is just like pulling teeth working with this person, your values often don't align. So
for sure,
get clear on your values and the values of the people that you want to work with.
Why they're working with you.
Yeah. So then obviously then there's money. Like the people, if you're doing this as a profitable business, you need to make a profit from it. So which of your services are you offering that's making a good amount of money, or is it a scalable amount of money? So And then which services would that target market fit in according to, if you've got, for example, like I've mentioned before, the Ehlers-Danlos thing, a lot of people with Ehlers-Danlos are on NDIS, so they're disabled. So I'm not going to be able to go and sell $500 for a coaching session with them, even though technically I'm probably one of the few people who is a coach with this condition around the world. So I could justify charging a lot of money, but I know these people don't have as much money. So this is now coming into the thought of, okay, who's my target market and who do I want to target? So it's
like you said, what exactly do you want out of it as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, do you want to make your whole identity that? You know what I mean? Like, there's a few level questions about yourself before you get to them as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then even within that world, there's different personalities of people. So which personalities do I like to work with, and what are my skills? And so it's all of this kind of brainstorming around, what am I good at? What do people like about me?
Yeah.
What
I like doing.
What do I like doing? Who do I want to work with? And then the final question is, of course, is this financially viable to actually do this with
100%.
these people?
Those first 4 questions that you said, as in like the who do I want to work with, who do I want to be, like I find so many new PTs think they know that but don't know that, and every time I walk into a commercial gym, that gets revalidated, because I walk past the board with the PT faces about these are all the PTs that work at our gym, and then it says their specializations, and it's like literally everything. Like I specialize in fat loss and muscle gain and rehab and powerlifting and bodybuilding, and I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah. And on that, a good place to start if you're completely new to this is something that you're experienced with.
100%.
Because when you're experienced with it, you know already the target market.
Yeah.
So this is the first thing that, what we're just talking about there is narrowing down on the target market. Then when you've kind of got them figured out a little bit more. So some of the questions that I'll ask my clients when I'm working with them, because I always start off with content strategy whenever I do anything with people. We always sit down and just talk about, you can't write someone a strength program if you don't know what their goals are, what they're trying to achieve, where they've come from, what their limitations are. So this is what we're doing in this strategy session, is we're sitting down and talking about what you actually want to achieve out of this content. So once you've kind of thought about, what services do you have to offer and who might that be suitable to, then it's kind of coming down and looking at the audience that you either work with or really want to work with. And normally this is a lot easier if you're already coaching. So you're already mixing with these people and you have a general idea of who they are or who you'd want more of. Then you start to ask questions like, what do these people do for work? And this question that I ask to people, often they'll just say, oh, I think they do this and I think they do this. And I'm like, go away, get a list, write down each client and write down each job that they do. Because some people might come back to me, and I've had some of my clients come back and they have a hugely disproportionate number of coaches as their clients. So I say, what are all their jobs? Are they 50% of them are PTs? Okay, well, this is something. So you've actually found that you've got a target market.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people actually come to me and they're like, I've heard that you can help me find my target market. I don't know who it is. Can we figure this out? I'm like, you've already got a target market. Let's just get clear on who it is.
Yeah. I often find that a lot of people, it'll be not exactly themselves, but like
very similar.
Like Zach will end up with a team of mini Zachs, not really, but like people with similar values and people that will speak the same way as him and stuff like that. I feel like a few people
on Zach's roster would probably be quite offended by that.
I think they're stoked with that.
But like I also like a bunch of my roster, less so these days, but when I started were the guys in my weight class who wanted to be like me or whatever, to a degree anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, I've got ADHD and every single one of my clients when I was coaching had ADHD, weirdly. And it was like 2 years down the track, we'd somehow get into a conversation.
That's because you talked about it, right?
Well, I never talked about it at the start.
Okay.
It was 2 years in that we'd start talking about it. And it's this 80-year-old guy who says, yeah, I've got ADHD.
Yeah.
So it's weird. But I mean, I'm very open about who I am.
Yeah.
And these personality traits, I'm a very like, this is who I am and open about that. So I think that that's probably why people who are similar kind of got drawn in. Yeah. So when you're looking at the audience that you already have, start thinking, okay, what do they do for work? That's one of the good questions to ask. What do they do outside of work? That's another good question to ask. Why do they come to train with you? So some people might say, oh, well, I get them to be strong. I'm like, yeah, but do they want to be athletes or do they just want to be every day?
Yeah.
I think that they enjoy being athletic. Okay, well, are these people also high performing in their job, or are they kind of like not high performing in their job? And you know, some people will say, oh, they're real like boss bitches who, you know, strong independent women.
Yep.
But some other people might say, oh, actually, they are pretty happy with just working however they like, and they actually use training as an outlet to hit that I need to perform part of them that they've got inside.
I think, Zach, you've been through this a bit, Zach, with your kind of identity and target market a little bit in the past. Because I feel like when a lot of, and you might be the same, you might relate to this, I think, but when you start in powerlifting, a lot of people, when they start in powerlifting, like their goal is to work with like world record breaking elite level powerlifters. I don't know why. That's just like the default. That's who that seems to be like the ultimate goal, is to work with those sort of people. And I just want to say it's okay to work with the people that want to be just like a decent powerlifter, but not fully consuming their entire life.
The reality is as well of those people who are the best, they don't pay you that well. You know what I mean? They don't pay you anymore, or a lot of them expect sponsorship now.
Yeah.
If they have to pay you, they're like, well, hold on, like I'm the best. I'm the best in the world.
All I'm saying is like have a good think about it. Like, do you really want to work with that person? Because I feel like it's just a default thing for a lot of people.
They like the idea of it, but the reality.
I hated working with athletes, and I was always pushed to do it.
Yeah,
I was always pushed to do it,
assholes.
and it's like, but Annie, you're an athlete. You're so good. You can coach other people, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want to help people with
Demanding
my stupid genetic condition not be disabled. And I'm going to take my performance mindset into it.
Yeah.
And so all of the people with Ehlers-Danlos who I've trained over the years are not the kind of people who sit at home and feel sad for themselves, or maybe sometimes, everyone does this sometimes.
Yeah.
But they're the kinds of people who actually, like, this is kind of bad, but I'll call them up and I'll be like, hey, when I've got this kind of pain, do I push through it or do I rest? And they're like, oh, look, technically I should tell you to rest, but I would push through it if I was you.
Yeah.
Like, it's these types of people who want to be.
Yeah, they're similar to you. They have that.
Similar, because I push my values and I'm open about my values.
Love it.
So if you want to attract people who you enjoy, write down your list of top 5 values and start looking for ways to push that in your content.
Yeah.
If one of your values is high performance, that's an easy one. Talk about high performance stuff. If one of your values is compassion.
Problems that elite high level performers have.
Yeah, exactly. If one of your values is compassion, that's a huge value for mine. So one of my huge values that I talk about, especially when I'm talking about this stuff with this autoimmune condition, is I'll talk about how I actually have found that even though I'm also, high performance is one of my values as well. So even though I hold this to high regard,
they might not be the same, but they blend
them, and this is how you blend them.
For sure.
You actually do better when you're using self-compassion, and there is research to show this. It's not about airy-fairy, ooh la la kind of stuff. This is actual research to show that it's actually how you create a growth mindset, is by using self-compassion and by saying, okay, I screwed up this time, but I can do better next time.
Yep.
So it's that coming into finding your target market, what are your values and how can you present those in your content? And then just diving deeper. So I like the 5 why method. So if you say this person comes to me because they want to perform better, say why. Okay, well, they...
it's like when you first meet somebody type thing, This is what you get taught in PT school anyway, to a degree.
Yeah, well, I never heard this particular one in PT school.
No, it was just, true. Maybe I picked it up somewhere else. But like I always thought, like, if I'm PT in a gym at Good Life or whatever, and somebody walks in and I say, like, what's your goal? It's literally always the same answer. Get healthier, get a bit stronger, get fitter, lose weight, whatever, look a little bit better. Like, it's very general. And then that 5 whys thing, which just helps you find the root cause and helps you solve the actual problem a bit easier. Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know what the 5 whys is, it's basically you ask why 5 times to get to the root.
You're just taking away layers.
Yeah. And then so
often they don't even know.
Yes. And the example that people you Google the 5 why method, and one of the examples that comes up is I got a red light ticket, and then the first question is why? Because I was running late to work and I sped through.
Yeah.
Okay. Why were you running late to work? Because the alarm didn't go off. Why did the alarm not go off? Because my phone was dead. Why was your phone dead? Because I forgot to plug it in. Why did you forget to plug it in? Because I was really tired the night before. So now you know the root cause is actually you need to get better at your bedtime habits. But then from a content perspective, from a marketing to your target audience perspective, you know, what we're talking about at the start, you need to actually tell your audience that you understand them and you understand their pain and you can help them. Yeah. Have you got a red light ticket? This is how you can deal with
you can
it.
Attack it at all levels.
Then you can, get down to the next. Do you have problems with driving too fast? Mm-hmm. Here's some tips that you can do. And then, does your phone not go off? Here's a reminder app that, you know, to remind you to put your phone on charge. You know, that this is a weird example, but from the perspective of training people and getting the 5 whys, you can actually, you know, I want to lose weight. Okay, you can talk about wanting to lose weight, and you want to lose weight because maybe it might turn out that they were a lot leaner when they're in high school and they want to feel how they used to feel. That's a very different reason than someone who wants to lose weight because they've got an upcoming surgery and they need to get strong for that.
Yeah.
So that's a very good way to then market to your niche, is by actually uncovering what people really want and not just marketing to what you see the other fitness coaches marketing. You know, everyone else is talking about this thing. You don't have to talk about that thing. I remember back when I was coaching at the very start, the whole thing was like, don't worry, girls, you can't get bulky from lifting weights. And I'm like, I don't ever have that conversation with my clients.
Yeah.
And it was just something that I didn't bring up. And then as a result, I had all these boss bitch girls who didn't care if they got bulky. They were just like, I had some girls who were like,
I want to get jacked
in what they did, and they just didn't care.
Yep.
I had one of Will's clients actually message me. She's like, I miss being chonky. She's like, I want people to look at me and describe me as being like chonky. And I just thought that word in particular was just so funny.
Yeah.
Particularly coming from her, like it was just such a funny conversation to have. She's like, man, like I feel so upset. All the people were coming up to me over the weekend telling me that like I'm smaller now and I look so much smaller. And she's, you know, competes in the under 75s, but she's like, I was so upset. I worked so hard to get so jacked and now people are telling me that I'm small and I don't like it. Yeah. Like them being complimentary, being like, oh, you look really good. Like you look really healthy and stuff, but for her she's like, fuck you guys.
So this comes back to speaking to your target market once you know them, because you've had that conversation with her, so you know the language that she uses. That's not the way to market to her, is to say, oh, do you want to be girls can't get bulky? Well, maybe some girls want to get bulky, so don't feel the need to repeat the same things that everyone else in the industry is repeating. That's just making content for the sake of making content. That's adding to the noise. What you need to do is find your target market, then find out the kind of words that they're saying. And one of the best tips that I can give to people is to go to your actual clients who are with you and talk to them, record what they say, write down the specific words that they use. Do it obviously in a consensual way. Don't be creepy about it.
I can just see Zach's face right now. Like,
Zach, this comes with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I'm just going to put the notepad out, just straight writing down exactly what they say every time.
And if you do sales calls, this is completely separate. This is coming into sales. If it's doing from the sales calls perspective, use their exact words. So this chonky example, Chonky Girls Club, like lifting weights. That's weird. That's really weird.
Nah, that's good.
That kind of idea.
Join
the Chonky Girls.
Yeah. So once you've found your target market, once you've kind of got clear on, an easy way to do it is to look at your existing market and find the common denominators amongst all of them. Because sometimes on the surface, they might look very different.
Yeah.
But then look deeper and find the things. Is it a value that lines up? Is it a past sporting background that lines up? Have all of them once been athletes, but now they're not athletes anymore? Have they all got ADHD? Have they all got something? What is it about them that's common? And it might be a desire, it might be a goal, it might be a deep down feeling that they have that's common. And then now you know your target market. Now you speak to them and you find the words that they use. And you find the language that they use. Imagine if someone is marketing a powerlifting gym and they were advertising liquid chalk. That's not a powerlifting gym. That's a commercial gym that's trying to be a powerlifting gym, and powerlifters know that and wouldn't go there unless they were desperate. So find the things that these people, the nuanced things,
apparently the secret is put liquid chalk on and then chalk on top. That's the secret. I saw that on Instagram.
Well, that's the thing that you can do to market hard. But for real,
secret.
like if you're looking at a powerlifting gym and you see them wearing a $50 belt from Rebel Sport, you're like, oh, that's not a real powerlifting gym. If you see a Pioneer belt, you're like, yeah, that's a powerlifting gym. So finding these nuanced things, and it comes into the language, it comes into everything. And that's why it's good if you're just starting out, niche in something that you are experienced with, because then you'll know the language naturally.
Yeah, because the people that know will see straight through you.
Yeah.
I saw that the other day on my Instagram. I saw a local gym. I forget what it was, but one of the local gyms, and they were advertising like strength classes or like, you want to be your strongest, like come see us. And the image that they used for their marketing on that was a guy squatting a 2.5 kilo plate on either side, with a towel to protect his neck. I was like, this is not the people who want to be their strongest. Like, you're not getting me with this ad. I guess I'm sure I'm not their target, but I don't know. It was just a thing which I just laughed at. But
yeah.
Zach, do you have anything to add? I have to keep referring to ask Zach if he has things, because I feel like he just gets left out because he's on
left out of this. Sorry, Zach.
I know.
Looking over to the computer to kind of.
Every time we have a guest, it is a little bit like that, because we're sitting here chatting and then Zach's kind of creeping.
Sorry about
Hello,
that.
I'm relegated to the corner. That's all right. One thing that I did want to kind of draw upon with the discussion about establishing your niche and establishing your target audience, I think something that, as you said, yes, knowing the nomenclature and understanding what goes along with that niche is important, but it's also a genuine enthusiasm towards that niche from yourself.
Yes.
And that audience and that niche that you're pushing towards, if your values change as a person and the ideals and the things that you want to pursue change, you don't have to be intrinsically tied to where you started, because there's nothing worse than somebody who started in one area. They've moved away from it themselves and they no longer have the passion for that area, but they're terrified to leave it behind because that's where their bread is. And then eventually they still lose that audience because now they're no longer really a part of that sphere at all. So that target audience, it has to shift with your values and with where you are as a person.
Yeah, that's a really good point to add. And I think that also, if you're changing, then probably some people in your target market are as well. I saw this thing of Dorian Yates the other day doing yoga, and it was this video that he uploaded, and he's like, your goals have to change, because if they stay the same, then you're going to put yourself backwards or something. And I was like, oh, thank goodness, finally someone's speaking, because I, was doing really well in powerlifting, and then I kind of stopped, and I'm like, who is my identity anymore? And then I see Dorian Yates, whose whole identity and fame was bodybuilding, and he's doing yoga, and I'm like, that speaks to me, because I can change and I can be different.
Yeah.
So as a coach, maybe if you step out there and say, actually, these values, like you said, Zach, it's okay to change. It's good to change.
It is scary though. It is
scary.
very scary for sure.
But if you share your experiences with it, other people who are scared can relate to you.
I think that's part of the frightening part of it, is like, you're scared that there's going to be no one else out there that's going to align with you. But in my experience, there's always, because how many people do you need?
Fear's a secret until it's like that thing of everyone's scared in the room, and then one person says, "Hey, I'm scared," and everyone's like, "Oh, thank goodness, I'm scared too. I'm scared too." Like,
there's going to be at least enough to fill your books anyway.
In my opinion, I often find like the content that resonates with me the most is when people are just being vulnerable in their thoughts, in their feelings, in their experiences.
Yeah, like you said,
they're
authentic.
Yeah.
And authentically vulnerable as well, because I was talking about this with someone the other day, and how it's like become trendy now to be like
in touch with your emotions and mindset.
And what's it called? Gatekeeping, they were saying. Like, I don't gatekeep, I tell everything. And it's like, okay, you also, there's a lot of stuff you're not, like, as the influencer, like, I think that there is an inauthentic vulnerable, and then there's an authentic vulnerable.
Yeah.
And the fact is that a lot of us might not want to share this authentic vulnerable, but it is a great marketing.
Yeah.
And you don't have to.
It's not all the time, because if you're constantly talking about, like, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with this, and some people are just like, this guy's life is kind of a mess. Like,
I've seen that. Yeah, you can definitely take it too far.
Yeah, I think there's that balance between like vulnerability and strength as well is important. As a leader, you can't just be vulnerable constantly, but it is a great tool to have in your toolkit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the last thing that I wanted to dive into, unless Zach has a bit more to go down, was one of the other mistakes I see with this, and that is when somebody's starting out. So imagine yourself at Good Life, was it? Starting at a PT. Like, these people that have a gym full of thousands of potential customers, literally right in front, they're paying rent to be in front of those people, that they think that they need to come out and write like this epic content and like blow people away with their editing reel skill and all this stuff. Whereas I find that those sort of people, like at that part of your career, you're still, like I said before, like defining yourself, like working out what you like and finding your market. You don't know it yet. So like just walking around, having conversations with people, building connections, just getting better at some of that just general communication and stuff is really what they should be focusing over writing content. Like when do you feel in a PT or coach's like life cycle as a coach, like how far in do you think you should go? Like, okay, we should start actually dedicating time to writing like content for the purpose of attracting customers. Like, is it when you go online, or like, I don't know, what's your take on it? Because I don't think there's a right or wrong answer.
Yeah. So I think there's a few things to that. One of the first things that comes to mind is actually writing is a great way to reinforce knowledge. So
yeah, big time.
From that perspective, there is no time that's too soon.
Okay.
And that's the first point. The second thing is, it would depend how they go about writing content. So one of my absolute favorite ways to write content, and if you're stuck for content, if you're a coach and you're working with athletes every day or clients every day, what's 5 questions that they asked you today? Write that down, write down your answer to it. And that's a piece of content. Or 5 things that you explained that you maybe have explained before, but the other times that you used your explanation, it didn't hit home. This time it did. Okay, sweet. I can write about that. Because coming back to the point that I made at the start of what would I do differently is give the people what they want. You know, this is that 4-hour work week thing. This is actually giving the people the answers to the questions that they want.
Yeah.
So that would be a way to start.
Yeah.
Then in terms of how soon should they be doing it, how much time should they be dedicating, I think it comes down to, from a business perspective, where should you be allocating your time throughout the week? So if you try it and you find that, oh, wow, this is actually getting me some good clients, then it's a great thing to do. If you find that it's not actually helping, then it's still probably a good idea to write, because it's a great way to reinforce ideas, but maybe not your main thing that you spend half of your week on.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say like it's a waste of time completely, because I think there is like that overlap in skill.
Yeah, but it's also a skill that you have to develop. You have to develop how to upload a blog and how to write a blog, and you have to.
Some of the stuff I wrote earlier, I don't think you're ever going to be good off the bat.
Yeah, well, my first powerlifting competition, I bombed out. I went 2 for 9, and that's what made me realize competing is a skill as well.
Definitely.
It's not just strength. You're not just strong and turn up and do your best competition. There's so many aspects to it that's skill based.
Yeah.
So I think getting into content writing early is great. Okay. But just don't be a dickhead about it. Don't think like you
good
have
life
to.
Advice.
Yeah, but this kind of comes to anyone. Don't speak. You know, at the start you were saying that you've learned that one of the most comfortable ways for you to write is to say, in my experience, I found this.
Yeah.
Write like that. Don't be a jerk and say the right way to do it is this and the wrong way to do it is that. I think that that's a mistake that beginners make, is they think that they need to know everything.
Yeah.
But actually one of the smartest things you can say is, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually there are times when you can really put a huge amount of trust in someone who says, I don't know. Like I've had times when I went to see a doctor once, and with Ehlers-Danlos, it's hard to find a doctor who's really good.
Yeah.
So I went to see this one doctor and he was great. And I was like, can I come and see you as my regular GP? Do you know anything about Ehlers-Danlos? And he said, I don't know much about Ehlers-Danlos at all. But he admitted that. And I'm like, okay, so I trust you. And then he said, but I'm willing to do the research and find out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you've got a loyal follower for life. Like there's so many times when saying I don't know is actually smart. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I don't want to say it about everything.
Yeah.
But that's where it comes back to, just write about an experience that you had that day with a client.
Yeah.
And then that's going to reinforce your target market, because if the people that you're working with, who you enjoy working with, are having this problem, then other people in your target market are as well.
There's other people out there that also write controversial clickbaity content for the sake, like they'll write this is right, this is wrong, because it's controversial and clickbaity.
Yeah, but I feel like after a while you get found out, and that's like it only works if you can't just do that for every post, because people will start realizing that you're
You're just a
you're full of
dickhead.
shit. Like, you just, it's not authentic. It's not.
And also, is that your target market? Is that actually you attracting your target market?
Clicks
do you
and
want
likes.
Karens?
Yeah.
Like, do you want the kind of people who click on an article and think this?
That's more the influencer thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just followers for the sake of followers.
Or do you want people, or do you want people who actually, personally, I like people who think. I like clients who I can teach them.
Yeah, definitely.
And but maybe some people don't. Maybe some people like clients who just come along and they get, like a drill sergeant. Yeah. That's okay. There's different people for everyone, but make the content reflect that. Yeah. I don't like content that says this is right and this is wrong, because I'm like, that's not very scientific. That's not the right way to speak. I want my clients to think like me, so I write the kind of content that attracts my clients.
Cool. So relating this all back to the mentorship and your guest presentation on the mentorship. So I guess our guest presentations are there to fill gaps, because we talk about powerlifting coaching, programming, technique, all those things that kind of make a powerlifting coach better. And then there are gaps like this, which we are not experts in, and I would feel like an absolute fraud doing a presentation on it. So that's why I bring experts like yourself. But yeah, we're going to be going into, this is more of a conversational way of talking about these sort of topics, but in that presentation, going into this stuff in a little bit more of a applicable, like, laid out way.
Logical.
Yeah. Like teaching way. So that's what you're going to be presenting on in the mentorship.
But of course you offer it as a service.
And and I was about to say, and you've also told me that you are starting to work with people outside of the fitness industry a little bit.
Yeah.
So quite a wide scope to work with. So if you want to give us a quick sell on what you do, what problems you solve, how you go about it, like what actual things that you sell in your business.
Yeah, sweet. So I've been doing content writing for people in the fitness industry for ages now. But since running it as a freelancing business, what I've found is that a lot of the time people actually don't necessarily need the content written. They first need to come up with the strategy of who they're trying to hit and why they're trying to hit it.
Yeah.
And
do you think that you just write it for them? I mean, it can work, but it just...
I've talked people out of doing content before. Someone came to me and they said, oh, I want you to write an ebook. And I'm like, that's going to be kind of expensive for you. Like, given what you want to get out of this.
Not only expensive this time, but you're going to have to pay me for the rest of your life, because you don't know. You don't know your own brand.
Yeah. And then it's also like, but how is this ebook actually going to help your business? And we sat down, I said, let's do a strategy session first. I always do a strategy session anyway, because even if I am going to write for you, when I was doing some writing with you guys, it was like, sit down and actually talk about who you're trying to target. What do they want to get out of their training? What are their deep down feelings that I need to touch on?
But also getting Will's tone of language across.
Tone of voice and everything. So that's what I do anyway. I've always started with a strategy session, but then what I found is a lot of the time people don't actually need the content written. So this person who, like one of the people who I was talking to who said that they needed an ebook, we sat down, we did a strategy session. They're like, oh, an ebook's not the right thing for me to do. I need to be doing this. And I'm like, yeah, sweet. And I actually enjoy the strategy stuff way more. So that's what I've started to push my business towards. And then I've just recently started to apply the stuff that I've learned here, because the interesting thing is the fitness industry is so far ahead with content creation than any other industry, really? I think, is my opinion. This is purely my opinion, because we are all freelancers. For so long, the fitness industry you have not been an employee. You have been a freelancer or a subcontractor running your own business, self-promoting. And the way that the whole world is going now in every industry is content marketing.
Yep.
So rather than billboard marketing, which is just hoping that the person needs what you want when you happen to interrupt them in the middle of the train of thought, it's content marketing, answering the question so that people come to the internet and look it up. If you're going to buy a vacuum cleaner, you're Googling, what is the best vacuum cleaner? What's the difference between cordless and corded vacuum cleaner? Which one has the best battery life? Which is the best for carpet? You're Googling all of these things, and
people know
through
the
that
features.
Process, you're building trust with certain brands.
Yeah.
If you see one brand, if you see the Kmart one come up 10 times as actually recommended, okay, I'm going to buy the Kmart one. If you see it as the lowest ranked one every time, you're going to say, okay, out of all of them, I'm definitely not going to get that one. So that's how content marketing is, but that's what the fitness industry has been doing for so long. And that's why I'm saying, if you're starting out, write down the answers to the questions that people have, because there's going to be people looking those answers up. So that's what I'm starting to apply to industries outside of the fitness industry, because interestingly, fitness industry is way far ahead. And when have you seen a dentist writing blogs? When have you seen a dentist, doing videos?
Before and afters now is a big thing for...
Yeah. But even with the before and afters hit home a lot more if there's a story attached to it. So that's content. And fitness people are walking around on their phones giving people tips on how to get the most out of XYZ. Imagine a dentist doing that. This is a flossing technique that you can use instead. Or a doctor. Doctors don't touch the marketing at all, but they need to start doing it soon. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm kind of gearing towards. But in fitness industry context, a lot of strategy and a lot of sitting down with people and helping them figure out their target market and what they want their content to achieve.
I swear to God, if a dentist ever said to me the best toothpaste and just put an Instagram post that said, buy this toothpaste, I'd love them forever. That's it. Tell me what the best toothpaste is and I will trust you. But they don't.
You believe them?
You're right. 100%.
Even if they said, and we sell it through our website, you'd still trust them.
Oh, 100%. Because he took the time to do it.
Yeah. So there's a huge space for it. The fitness industry is crowded with content because it's further ahead. In other industries, you can just do content marketing and it just works because it's new.
Yeah.
The fitness industry there's a lot of noise. But the way to cut through the noise is to know your target market and just speak to them. Yeah. And just say what you need to say to those people. Understand your business goals, because again, this is coming back to you want to grow your business. So do you need more leads or does your conversion rate suck? Do you actually need to improve your conversion rate? Do you need some content to help you improve that? Do you need clients to stay on longer? You can help people with. Yeah, this is the stuff that I help people with, is I sit down and do that with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want, I'm sure everybody that listens to this can relate to at least some part of that. I thought there was some really valuable little knowledge bombs in there. But we'll go through it more on the mentorship presentation. So if you're keen on that, if you're a powerlifting coach or you're looking to get into powerlifting coaching, if you coach people through squat, bench, and deadlift and you think strength could help them, jump on the mentorship. Before you do, jump on a call with me and I'll talk you through it and see if you're the right fit for it, of course. And you can do that via our website and you can jump on Andy's call and actually ask her questions live on that call. So yeah, we'll leave it there.
Yeah, awesome. Can't wait for the mentorship. It's going to be really good.
Yeah.
I think we'll drop obviously all Annie's details in the
absolutely
the bio of
Put
this.
Below it, all that stuff.
Yeah, Tam, get on it. All right. Thank you very much, Annie. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you for having me. Sorry you weren't sitting.
Here's Zach. No, that's Zach's fault. I've been telling him to come to the Gold Coast, live here forever, so it's his fault. He's purposely chosen to not be involved.
I've purposely chosen to live in a different state.
Yeah.
All right.
Rebel.
Red hot. Thank you for listening to Nexus Unloaded. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned on today's podcast, plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gym services. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at NexusPerformance.Aus for any updates on what we are currently doing. See you all in the next episode.